From the name Call Her Daddy alone, you know what you're getting into before pressing play. Alex Cooper's advice and comedy podcast has been a groundbreaking endeavor, starting as nothing more than a barstool sports podcast, has evolved into a global movement. Alex Cooper cornered a niche of her own and, quoting from the official website, spitting in the face of misogyny and putting a modern twist on feminism. Much of the content in the show focuses on not only advice, but also outright hysterical, embarrassing, and taboo stories. From its original release in 2018, the podcast has expanded outside of the realm of Alex's personal anecdotes and into the interview sector, and Cooper's been widely praised for her ability to make guests feel comfortable enough to answer some pretty juicy questions. Coming in at number 10 is the most recent guest to take a seat across Alex Cooper, being none other than Zayn Malik. In a surprising turn of events, the former One Direction member decided to do his first interview in 6 years with Alex Cooper. The reason he's made a comeback from his much-needed hiatus, he revealed, was his daughter, whom he shares with his ex-girlfriend Gigi Hadid. Malik said, "Since I've had my daughter, the main thing in my mind is trying to be a good example for her. That's why I'm even doing this interview, you know? I used to get a lot of anxiety around having a conversation like this, and I want her to be able to look at me and be like, yo, my dad's doing this." In 2021, 1 year after his daughter was born, Hadid and Malik ended their 6-year relationship after rumors emerged of an alleged altercation between Malik and Hadid's mother, Yolanda, which led him to end up with 4 criminal offenses of harassment, 360 days of probation, and anger management classes. And although Cooper pried, Malik refused to comment and deny the allegations for the sake of his daughter. At number 9 is my personal childhood crush, Cole Sprouse. Cole's become quite weird after his stint on Riverdale, and I'm not saying it's coincidental, I'm just making an observation. He joined Alex Cooper on an episode of her podcast earlier this year to recount how he lost his virginity, telling Cooper he was 14 and still rocked his bowl cut, a reference to the classic haircut he wore during his Sweet Life of Zack and Cody era. According to Cole, he met an older girl and made out with her one night during a family trip to Florida. The next night, Cole asked if she was down, and she was, which prompted Cole to tell his brother Dylan to leave their hotel room, which has sparked a lifelong inside joke between the twins. As Dylan was leaving the room to give his brother some space, he asked, "Where do I even go?" To which Cole replied with a line he's never been forgiven for, "I don't know, go play chess or something." Cole revealed that after this experience, he regretted his first encounter as he didn't make it at all special, and it's gone on to play a huge role in how he perceives relationships, saying that, "After that, I became a truly serial monogamist, going from long-term relationship to long-term relationship, and all while smoking a skinny little cigarette that's become oh so infamous." At number 8 is pop superstar Demi Lovato, who revealed plenty on her trip to Call Her Daddy Studios. She opened up about the real meaning behind her new song 29 being that of her relationship with ex-boyfriend Wilmer Valderrama, the That 70s Show alum who she dated for 6 years when Lovato was only 17 and Valderrama was 29. Yikes! She also revealed in more detail the horrific experiences she had as a child star and the resulting trauma, saying her team was very strict about her staying thin, having her purchases be monitored, and in one instance being barricaded in her room after she admitted to binge purge tendencies. Demi admitted to turning to drugs due to this toxic environment in order to have them drop her, which inevitably led her to her recent overdose and rehab intake. Demi then speaks about how she's determined to expose the child star industry and is currently working on a project with other child stars, and also revealed that she's sober again after leaving treatment in December 2021, saying she feels great and currently is recording her new album. At number 7 is the adult entertainer Mia Khalifa, who opened up to Alex Cooper about how the reaction to her role in the adult film industry ruined her trust in others and is now constantly worrying about other people's perspectives of her, saying that anytime she'd go out, she'd be wondering if people around her had seen her videos, which honestly, I kind of feel the same way. Khalifa goes on to talk about how close female relationships helped her to rebuild her trust in people. Cooper added her own point of view on friendship and the power it has on how we see the world, saying, "I'm sure the dynamic between you and men was so threatening to you mentally at the time and what you just had gone through. So then to have women in your life, maybe that was the best opportunity." Khalifa agreed, saying that attempting to trust again became much more doable once she had the support of best friends. Her relationships before her husband involved what she called a naive facade and warned young listeners that if a guy ever calls you mature for your age, to run. Now she has inner confidence and solid people in her corner who won't let anyone try to shame her with outdated societal expectations. Coming in at number 6 is Chelsea Handler. Before Cooper begins the interview with the comedian, she recalls the first time she saw Handler at her Life Will Be the Death of Me tour, saying, "I remember leaving that day saying, I hope I can meet her one day, and now 2 years later, we're sitting on a couch together." Cooper had Handler open up about her experience with writer's block and creative ruts and how to move past them. Handler answering, "I guess the thing to remember is that everything is always moving, so you get creative growths and bursts. Creatively, I don't beat myself up." Handler then opened up about a flop moment she experienced, recalling a moment at the Montreal Comedy Festival, saying, "I was supposed to be the hot ticket of the festival. I had a room, a set, and the whole festival was filled with hundreds of agents, TV execs, studio execs, and I bombed. It was devastating, but the story doesn't end on a low note." As Handler adds that 72 hours after her failed performance, she had an outstanding performance at a different venue and was approached by 2 executives, receiving what she calls the biggest opportunity of her life. life. You have to fail before you do anything good, and knowing about performers' failures and hardships in creativity is honestly always very inspiring. At number 5 is the #1 Playboy bunny Holly Maddison, who shared many intimate details of her life with Hugh Hefner on the podcast. Cooper asked about being Hefner's main girlfriend, which she was inevitably pushed into becoming because none of the other bunnies wanted the role. Madison's time in the mansion was apparently really isolating because all women were pit against each other. Outside the toxic relationship dynamics, the list of demands the bunnies were forced to meet is a long one, from a 9 p.m. curfew to a weekly spending allowance which was not allowed to be saved, exposing the restrictive and controlling environment she was stuck in. Holly explained that if other bunnies caught people not spending their allowance in the entirety, they would tell Hefner so they would get less money. As well, it was extremely hard to have any true privacy at all, and because of this, Maddison admitted to having struggled with depression, but when she brought her concerns to Hefner, she was not allowed to see a psychiatrist, but instead someone Hefner knew personally. While living with Hefner, Holly had no idea the entire toll it was taking on her mental health and wasn't able to heal until she left for good. Coming in at number 4 is John Mayer, who is known for being quite the playboy in Hollywood, having partook in scandalous relationships with Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, and Jennifer Aniston. He revealed that he hoped to change his ways while in the interview with Alex Cooper, saying he doesn't really date anymore and one day hopes to get married, but says that probably won't happen anytime soon. When Cooper asked if he was afraid of commitment, he replied, "Nope, I want to get married," and he continued admitting that he can't wait to fight about mundane things like dry cleaning with his future wife, saying nothing's hotter than conflict resolution. Apparently, fame really affected how the singer saw his romantic life in the past, saying, "I was made to believe growing up that if somebody liked me, it was pretty much an accident and should be capitalized on. So I felt very deeply when somebody liked me. Every relationship I've ever been in was devoted to the idea that it could go the distance." He continued saying, "My entire life today concluded, if you told me I could have a great 2 months with someone, but it would end on the first day of the 3rd month, I would not be interested. I've always sought potential for a long-term relationship," which Cooper seems to take his word for, however, I am apprehensive too. Coming in at number 3 is Amanda Knox, a student wrongfully convicted in 2007 of taking the life of her roommate Meredith Kircher while in Italy, decided to take to Cooper's podcast discussing the vilification of female sexuality, where she stands with her former roommate's family, as well as motherhood, bringing her daughter Eureka to the studio. Considering the notoriety surrounding Amanda, she anticipates the day she'll have to teach her daughter what happened, saying, "I'm going to let her guide her own understanding of my case, and when she asks me, I'm going to be totally honest." Amanda discussed how the trial affected her, saying, "Since my exoneration, I've struggled to reclaim my identity and protect the people I love from being exploited as tabloid content. The trial has especially begun to hit her hard since the birth of her daughter, as she can now put herself in Michelle's mother's shoes." And as she talks to Cooper about this, she begins to get quite emotional, expressing how she would one day like to talk to the roommate's family, but understands that it may take time, saying, "I know it's a complicated situation, and it's unclear to me at this point how they feel about me, and I don't want to force a relationship onto them if it's traumatic for them." Knox sent messages to the family through intermediaries and had yet to get a response. "I want the same thing that they want. I want to know the truth." And our runner-up is Nessa Barrett. If you've spent any time on TikTok, you'd understand the influence of Nessa Barrett. The social media star sat down with Cooper to discuss her recent relationship drama, new music, and mental health. Barrett's relationship with fellow internet star Josh Richards sent waves through the TikTok sphere, although only being involved for 6 months. Nessa described the relationship as too serious for how young they were and talked about how she felt a lot of their time together was for views and content. Unsurprisingly, the two grew apart and eventually broke up. Soon after the aforementioned breakup, Nessa and Jaden, who's Josh's friend, began dating, which they swear was not a result of cheating, but when this became public knowledge, she was faced with the backlash, being called expletives and a homie hopper. She understands that everyone has different sides of the story and said, "It was selfish, but ultimately is not something I regret." During their relationship, both of them were going through mental health struggles and became fiercely codependent due to a us against the world mentality. Their mental health continued to deteriorate and soon recognized that they needed to work on themselves before jumping into another relationship. Nessa opened up further about her mental health history as she recalled being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder at 18 and attempting to overdose at 14 that had her placed in a psychiatric ward. Nessa lost one of her closest friends, someone who she'd always lean on in her darker moments, and finding out he'd passed caused her to turn to substances again and attempted to drive off of a cliff before being found by friends who called her an ambulance, but says that she's doing much better these days. Our number 1 spot goes to Renee Rapp. The Sex Lives of College Girls lead sat down with Alex to discuss her experiences on the show, saying that she often hated coming to work because of her character latent sexuality and her own internalized homophobia. Renee talks about how she's just come out as bisexual basically through the show and the difficulties that came with it from growing up in North Carolina. She also talks candidly about her experience with disordered eating and how her Broadway performing history did not help in the slightest to curb it, but instead encouraged it. Renee also goes into intimate detail with her relationship history, talking Cooper through every person she's been with individually, listing the pros and cons. And that's our list of the top 10 Call Her Daddy interviews that broke the internet. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know which one you found the most interesting in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.